As we reflect 40 days after Easter on the Lord's Ascension, actually a few days more than 40, because we have transferred Ascension Thursday to Sunday here in the great state of Indiana. Bishop Rhodes, when he was in Pennsylvania, they kept it on Thursday. So he gets here, he's like, "What's up with this?" But I think he's sort of accustomed himself to it now, and he's used to it. But here on this feast, there seems to be, in the readings very clearly, and even in the opening prayer, a clear connection between this Feast of the Ascension and the Christian virtue of hope. As the Lord, the Son of God, takes our human nature to heaven. He takes the humanity that he has united to himself, and he takes that up to heaven. He leaves this place, this world, and he returns to the Father. That is, for us as Christians, a very, very important source of hope. And that hope continues throughout the rest of the life of the church, but especially as we think of the feast coming up in a couple months of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary as well, where we see that one of us human persons is drawn up into heaven, body and soul. So we have this great hope today. And today's feast declares in that hope a truth that sounds silly to say, but important for us to consider. And that truth is that here on earth, we are not in heaven. Of course, that sounds so simple. But we have 100 things that remind us of this every single day, including this past week in Uvalde, Texas, a couple weeks prior, Buffalo, New York, and not to mention so many other tragedies beyond our nation's borders, which have made it abundantly clear that this cannot be heaven. However, as we reflect honestly on the goodness of this world and this life, we know that it certainly isn't hell either, and that is something worth remembering too. In fact, the choices that you and I make, brothers and sisters, one by one, every single one of us every day, they contribute to what our society looks like overall. None of us live in a vacuum. Every single one of us is affected by the people and the environment around us. So our choices always do more than just affect ourselves. They end up influencing everyone else around us. This is the point of why we come to church every Sunday, one of the reasons, because God transforms us to be more like himself, and we help each other to be the Christians that we are meant to be. We help each other to live in Christian hope. Because, as I reiterate that first point, we aren't in heaven yet. And so hope is an important part of us remembering that. And during this Easter season, the church requires us to pray regularly with this passage from the Liturgy of the Hours, beginning from the beginning of Colossians chapter 3, where St. Paul says, "If you then have been raised with Christ, then seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory." That passage tells us to turn our eyes towards heaven, to look like the apostles did, up at the sky. Not forever, as the angels tell them, stop looking at the sky, but we have to start looking at the sky, which is more commonly the problem for us in our day and age. In his book, Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis has a chapter on hope, chapter number 10 on hope, and he says, "Hope is a theological virtue, meaning that as we look to the eternal world, it's not some kind of escapism or wishful thinking for a Christian, but something a Christian is required to do. It doesn't mean that we are to leave the present world as it is. If you read history, you will find that the Christians who did the most for the present world were precisely those who thought most of the next world. The apostles themselves, who set foot on the conversion of the Roman Empire. The great men who built up the Middle Ages. The English evangelicals who abolished the slave trade. All of them left their mark on earth precisely because their minds were occupied with heaven. It is since Christians have largely ceased to think of the other world that they have become so ineffective in this world. If you aim at heaven, you will get earth thrown in. Aim at earth, and you will get neither. This is the importance for us, brothers and sisters, of Christian hope. We turn our eyes to heaven. We seek the things that are above, not on earth. We look to where Christ has gone before us because we wish to do the most that we can for this time and place around us. Because we want to change the world, brothers and sisters, we have a duty. We have a vocation, an obligation to spend time looking at heaven, to spend time in deep prayer, whether in Eucharistic adoration in a quiet church or singing the praises to the Lord with holy music in a group of others or by ourselves. We are required to spend some time with the Gospels, reading the life of Christ, or with other parts of the New Testament, letting the early church guide and direct us, or even reading about the saints' lives, the saints who show us that our hearts can be already in heaven even while we're still on earth. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth, and you will find the blueprint for what you are meant to do with your life today. Then all you have to do is follow the Lord's lead in carrying it out.